Welcome to today's lecture on sovereignty, monoism, and pluralism. I do not want anybody is opening their mics or videos. Last class was very disturbing, so you are advised to switch off your audio and video. So let us get into the lecture. So what is sovereignty? Let us understand about this introduction to sovereignty. So what does it mean? It means that if we think about it, any state cannot exist without any authority. So authority is a supreme power. So sovereignty is indirectly a supreme power. So be it a democratic sovereignty or be it an aristocratic sovereignty or an absolute sovereignty, but sovereignty exists in the states and it distinguishes the state from all other forms of political and social organizations. Then, who are the proponents of sovereignty? Aristotle, uh, John Austin, Jean Bodin, Hobbes, Locke, and Rousseau and Bentham. They are all are proponents of sovereignty. They have said or gave in their theories about what sovereignty is about. So I hope you have read Western political philosophy. Then you might have read about Aristotle's state virtue as sovereign authority. Then Hobbes, Locke, Rousseau, the social contract theorists, and Bentham is a utilitarian. They all wanted an authority to let you enjoy your natural rights. So, what are those natural rights? Liberty, then property, then life. So these are all the proponents of sovereignty. Then let us understand meaning and definition of sovereignty. So what is the sovereignty word came from? So it's a Latin word. It's called suprenus, which means supreme. Supreme means highest authority. And supreme power of the state. State is controlled by this sovereign authority. Then Aristotle, he describes sovereignty as a supreme power of state because to him, state is an institution where it's an extension of family institution. So state was created basically to have these civil laws, political laws, and citizens to enjoy their civil rights and political rights, and rather than living in a state of nature where it's very harsh and etc. They wanted the state to be established and look into people satisfying their needs. So then Roman jurists, they also refer sovereignty as fullness of power. So to Aristotle, it's supreme power. To Roman jurists, it's fullness of power. Then Jean Bodin, so or Jean Bodin, you can pronounce it however you want. So Jean Bodin, he says in 16th century, he's a 16th century French political philosopher. Then he gave this concept of sovereignty. See, if you're talking about sovereignty, you have to remember this philosopher. You have to remember this thinker who gave notion of sovereignty through his book called Six Books of the State. And in this, he explains this notion of sovereignty. Then republic. So this was given by Plato. Then he defined sovereignty as supreme power of the state over the citizens and subjects, unrestrained authority. Okay, so what is sovereignty? It's a supreme authority over all the subjects and citizens. You should understand the difference because olden days, citizens were like the true belongers to the territory, and the other persons could be slaves or could be prisoners, could be merchants or traders. So that is why sovereignty is supreme authority over state, citizens, and unrestrained authority. So this could be by both citizens and the subjects could be established sovereign authority. Then Hugo Grotius, he's father of international law. Then he spoke about external aspect of sovereignty. John Bodin, he speaks about internal aspect and monoism of sovereignty, and Hugo Grotius, he talks about external sovereignty. So that's why he's known as father of international law. His specialization is making people understand how international law works between two or more states on an international space, not just between your territory or your state. Okay. Then John Locke. You all read John Locke. So John Locke theory of contract stated sovereignty is a result of social contract. So he divides sovereignty as not the absolute sovereignty, but there will be sovereignty And then there will be a government, which is a trust formed by the people. So people, in order to have better rational understanding, or in order to protect their natural rights, they gave up some of their rights. Okay, so they gave up some of their rights to an authority, where that authority will make sure that their rights are implemented, their rights are not disturbed by other individuals. So, John Locke's sovereignty is is a result of social contract. Then Burgess, to him, sovereignty has original, absolute, unlimited power over the individual subject and over all associations. So, it's not just you, individual, but also whatever associations you form, even it is a family as an institution, or any organizations that you form, or any in your community or tribe. So sovereignty is absolute, unlimited, and individual power over all subjects of association. Then John Austin. So John Austin's law is command of sovereign. Then he gave different aspects. They are like internal sovereignty and external sovereignty. So what is internal sovereignty? Supreme power of the state in relation with the society. So state is a supreme power in between in state is a supreme power over its individuals in that territory. Okay, that is called internal sovereignty. Then external sovereignty is, so this is okay. External sovereignty is an attribute that state possesses in relation to the other states, so that the other state cannot extend their control over you. Okay. So power of state to make laws, enforce them all over individuals and their associations with territory. It's final in its internal matters. So state, so whatever state says, whatever state as an sovereign authority says, it's final, like well and done. You can't argue. If you argue for it, you have to face the consequences. So, and external sovereignty, state possesses in relation to the other states. This implies independence of state from foreign control. So state is only the highest authority both inside and outside space. You cannot be controlled by an external authority. Example, during colonialism, the state, both internal and external aspects, were controlled by colonial powers. India as a nation did not have its institutions, it did not have its authority. So that is why it implies both independence from foreign control and inside of the state. So state freedom in conducting international relations. So what does this statement mean? It's a very deep statement. Means as a state, you are at ease to make any foreign policy according to your wishes, according to anything which would be beneficial to your state. Okay. Not just that you are controlled by some other state, then your foreign policy would obviously be depending on what is important for that external territory which possesses control over you. So, in India, example, India is only the better example because before independence, did India had any free say, or Indians as citizens, did we have any free say in making foreign policy? Actually, did we have any foreign policy? So after independence, we are an authority. We understood that who are our enemies, who are our friends, and how better you can have a foreign policy in order to have better industrialization, like make up for the drain of wealth that has happened during the independence period. So state freedom in conducting in international relations. Then characteristics of sovereignty. Please do remember the characteristics of sovereignty. So this is absoluteness. So what is absoluteness? Sovereignty of a state is absolute. It's an absolute authority, one and only authority. You cannot argue for it. Then association within its frontiers of the state are subject to absolute and unlimited sovereign of the state. So whatever the associations, whatever citizens that are existing in that absolute authority territory, they are responsible to that sovereign authority. Then self-imposed by the state and not by any individual or group of individuals. Yes. So this is total state authority. You are not controlled by any individual or an association of individual or an aristocrats or monarchy. Okay. So this is like democracy, but rather it's a state has control. Then external sphere. Sovereignty is absolute and cannot be restricted by another state. then only you will be called a sovereign authority. Then only you will be called a sovereign state. Then legally also, sovereignty remains absolute. Both legal, political, civil, economic, everything. This has to be an absolute authority, and there may be limitations placed on it by customs and traditions of the people. So sovereignty also has a limitations because we as a nation are a group where there's no uniformity all around India. We are citizens of various race, ethnic cultures, then sex, gender, everything like discriminated. Okay. So as an inherent rights of individuals and external affairs by for international relations. So these limitations are placed on it due to traditions and the customs. So this could be both natural, this could be both not natural, etc. So then, so I think someone is audios is on. So if I find out that, I'll remove them from the class. So please do off your audio. The last class was very disturbing, and especially with its getting on a YouTube live, it will be disturbing over there also. Please mute your audios and videos. So I think someone's still talking. Universality. Sovereignty is universal, comprehensive, and applicable to all individuals and association. So it is absolute, it is universal because no exceptions or immunities are granted in case of diplomatic representative. Even the diplomats who stay outside of the India, but still they are the citizens of the India, right? So they still have to abide by the sovereign authority of the state they belong to. So there are no exceptions and the immunities when it comes to sovereignty. And diplomatic conventions, customs, granting the promotion of friendliness, peace, goodwill, and cooperation among the states. Then inalienability. It's inalienable. It's incapable of giving away by the state. So state basic structure is formed on the concept of sovereignty, right? So state is incapable of giving it away and sovereignty without annihilating itself. When a state voluntarily cedes a part of territory, now this is an interesting concept. So if one state is occupied by the other state, okay? So then that only the territory that which is occupied by the other state will have sovereign authority. The occupied territory will be abided by the state which occupied it. So this occupying this enemy state cannot expand its territory to the unoccupied parts. So then the unoccupied parts are still under sovereign authority of the original state. So that is what it gives says up. Then sovereignty on the rest of territory remains intact, individualized, and ungraded. So if see if LOC, that would be a controversial thing. So if some state is occupied, ceded by the other powerful state, then that powerful state can only impose its sovereign authority only that occupied territory. It cannot impose its the sovereignty on unoccupied parts. So unoccupied parts are still under the original state only. So that is what this line talks about. And permanence. So these are the characteristics. Please do remember. So sovereignty is permanent. Independent state lasts on the death of the ruler. Sovereignty is shifted to his successor. You understood, right? Just with the death of the ruler or someone, it won't vanish away. It's permanent. It will just be passed on to the other person who will take over the power. Then ruler exercises sovereign power on behalf of state as its instrument of agency. So it's not that the sovereignty exhibited by the ruler itself, but it's an instrument of power that has been used by the king. Okay, so king will be given this sovereign authority. It's not just it's something of his own. So he will be given his sovereign authority according to it. Then sovereignty is indivisible, individed, and more than one state exists. So it cannot be indivisible. It's absolute, it's permanent, it's indivisible, it's inalienable. So these are all characteristics. Then it is divided. If there are two states existing in the same territory, then it's divided and made sure that whatever the territory the states are existing, only to such territories their absolute the sovereignty extends. not just the beside state also. Okay. Then exclusiveness. It's exclusive because it's a sole possession of the state. So sovereignty is an inclusive possession of sovereign state. So it cannot be something that, see, exclusive means you go to some shop, they say it's an exclusive collection, like it's our trademark collection. So state's exclusive possession is sovereignty. Then state excludes any outside agency. So state is that authority to remove those outside agencies, and no individual or association within a state or outside can wield sovereignty and be equal to the state. See, if something happening, like suppose an authority or someone is taking what do we call, taking over the state, and they are establishing their authority, then that cannot be passed on to them. So it's just an exclusive authority of the state. It cannot be passed down to an association cannot act as a sovereign authority or as an equal also. There cannot exist a sovereign authority and sovereign authority exhibited by the associations or a single individual or a group of people. So there's only one sovereign authority. Then a kind of sovereignty. So kind means titular sovereignty. Sovereignty has no real power. Power is vested with one person, and real power is enjoyed by the another. So monarch of the Great Britain and the president of India are the best examples of titular sovereignty because they are just rubber stamps. See, ours is the republic head is not democratically elected, right? So the prime minister is democratically elected. So although the prime minister is democratically elected, the power is vested in hands of president. The prime minister just, sorry, president just acts as a rubber stamp, and real power is enjoyed by the prime minister only. No, if prime minister gets down, then the state system collapses, then again elections are held. But that sovereignty is intact under president, but it could be passed on once the again other authorities established. So monarch of the Great Britain examples and president of India. Then real authority is exercised by the cabinet in the name of monarch in Great Britain and president in India. And real sovereignty. So this is titular sovereignty and real sovereignty. A man or a body of men who act on the behalf of sovereignty and exercise supreme authority is real sovereignty. So now what does this mean? A man who can act on the behalf of sovereign state and exercise its control. Not just like power is vested in one and real power is enjoyed by another, but here both power vested and power enjoyed is by only single individual. So that is called real sovereignty. Then legal sovereignty. Legal sovereignty is what? Legal sovereignty, state has power to make laws in the state. Example, Queen of England, Monarch of Japan, President of India, the best examples of this type of sovereignty. How? If anybody can say how they are called as legal sovereigns. Why? Because if a bill is passed by both the houses, if it is only signed by the president, then only it become a law. Then only it become an act. So that is why this legal sovereign, they have this authority to make laws in the state. If he doesn't sign, or if the president doesn't sign, then it does not become a law, even though it's passed by both the houses. So these are legal sovereigns. Then political sovereignty is in constant context of modern democracies. So A.V. Dicey Levi Dacey spoke on political sovereignty is a will of sovereign which is accepted and practiced by all. So in modern representative democracies, this political sovereignty is often identified with whole mass or electorate or public opinion. So political sovereignty is what this concept of this political means anything around like right to vote, fundamental rights, or holding public institutions, or conducting election. These are all the concept of political sovereignty. And what it is called, sovereign is often identified with either the whole or mass of people, where electorate with public opinion. Then popular sovereignty. Popular sovereignty is means what? Supreme power of the people. Supreme power is rested with the state uh, in the state which is given to the people. So idea of popular sovereignty developed as a protest against excessive authority exercised by monarchs. So eventually the popular sovereignty, the authority was in the hands of the people. Then French and American revolutions are influenced by this popular concept of popular sovereignty. Then writers like Marsiglo, William, and Althusser are popular. They popularized this concept of popular sovereignty, and French philosopher Rousseau also advocated for popular sovereignty. His general will, his concept of general will is popular because it's rested with the people. It's not rested with some individual, but rather it's a group of individual or the community that's been formed to look into the satisfaction of their needs. Then general will represents real will of all in the state. So what it is called, because general will is something that is which would satisfy the needs and the rights of the people, as in looking from the community perspective overall. Okay, so democracy of the people exercise their will directly through press and from the platform of elections. Then popular sovereignty is vague and indignity. Then de jure sovereignty. So what is de jure? De jure means it's a French word, so which means legal, supreme power by legal right. So land of law of land converts the right to rule on the de jure sovereign. So what is this right to govern and command obedience? So de jure power, de facto. De facto means fact, real or actual. So sovereign exercising power, command, obedience. So de jure sovereign acquires power by overthrowing the de jure sovereign through conspiracies of coup d'etat. Then sovereign may be military, general, dictator, or an usurper. Okay. So de jure, de facto, and legal, political sovereignty. Challenges to sovereignty. So what are the challenges? Challenges are especially criticized from pluralists. So they challenge the monastic view of the absolute individual sovereignty. And sovereignty is not a unity. It will be divided between states and other associations. This notion is given by Lasky, Cole, Barker, and McEver. Okay. Then growth of internationalism. So with globalization, growth of internationalism, the the states have become more interdependent. Dependent. So it's like if you cannot come up with this concept of monoistic sovereignty, because as now people states started to living in close niche and close connection with each other, they are becoming more and more dependent. So in that notion, or in that sense, you cannot just have one sovereignty. So this is their argument, pluralist argument. Then role and domain have changed by actors like intergovernmental organizations, interstate non-governmental organizations, regional factors, emergence of international organizations. So as now with the globalization and emergence of third world and decolonization, so this have led for the growth of intergovernmental organizations, interstate organizations, or regional actors have led to start to act like an other sovereign element. So they also say that this pluralism only works, monism doesn't work in day-to-day's democratic world. Then globalization of the economy, communications revolution necessarily means slippage of national sovereignty. So this globalization, you are inviting the external factors or external territory to act or to be in your state, then you cannot necessarily say that you have this monistic sovereignty and your own one sovereignty is the head and those powers shall be followed. No, this is not possible in this globalized world. Then international corporation. So international cooperation is another challenge to sovereignty, because states have started to have this close relationships with other states. So they could be used or they could be imposing through MOUs also. So this is not something which is relatable in day-to-day life. The next one is monastic theory of sovereignty. So it's given by John Austin. Please do remember who gave monastic theory of sovereignty means John Austin. He also call it as legal theory of sovereignty. So in his another book, Providence, Province of Jurisprudence Determined. So in that he says The concept of sovereignty is based on the theories of Hobbes and Bentham. So his concept of sovereignty is based on the theories of Hobbes and Bentham. And Austin comes to a definition of sovereignty through definition of law. Why? Because he already defined it as a legal theory of sovereignty. So he defined it through law. So as a command given by the superior to an inferior, and sovereignty is a state is vested to determine human superior legally placed above all people. So it's a command given by a superior one person to an inferior, and sovereignty is vested to determine human superiority. This is legally placed above all people. So legal laws comes into picture, and legal laws, if one does not obey by the legal laws, they could be called out. Right. So that is why he gives legal theory of sovereignty, it's legal notion. So if a determinate human superior is not in habit of obedience, like superior receives habitual obedience from bulk of given society. So that is why they wanted the superior human being to have these habits. Then determinate superior is sovereign in that society, and that society is a society of political and independent. And the determinate superior is final source of supreme power. So now what does this human being have? He's a final source. I mean, he's a final authority in that space of supreme authority, in that space of territory. And his society, these powers are societal, political, and independent. And this only be present in society where it's independent society, democratically established society. Then implications of Austin's theory. So state the majority of citizens obeys habitually a determinate human superior who is to be deemed to be one person or a group of persons. So what are the implications of Jane Austen's theory? State of majority citizens obey habitually a determinate human superior who is to be deemed as one power or a group of powers. So in a state where majority of the citizens, they by themselves determine an individual or a group of individuals to be their supreme authority in passing down the laws, or they are responsible to that supreme authority, and that supreme authority is responsible in making the laws, or making or establishing peace in the state. And people obey the sovereign orders as a matter of regular habit. You just have to have obedience and the habits to be living in a sovereign authority. You have to be ready to take the commands. Then absolute, indivisible, and unrestrained. So sovereignty is always that. Then not vested in people to the electorate of the general will as conceived by Rousseau. Then superior does not obey the orders of anyone because he has no rival of equal status in the state. So superior is absolute. Criticized by Democrats, internationalists, and pluralists. Who are they? Henry Maine, Sidgwick, A.V. Dicey, H.J. Lasky, J.C. Gray. Yeah, I'll give. Don't disturb the class now. Not possible to discover determinate human superior, and not recognize the differences and importance of customs, traditions are ignored. So these criticisms are given by Democrats, internationalists, and pluralists. So what they say, it's highly impossible to discover such human superior who could be an highest authority, and everybody is below him, and he's not the rival one because he's a supreme. And it is importance of customs and traditions are ignored, like just so that this authority gives powers to be followed or obedience to be accepted, but in a way they will ignore your social customs. So that those are their criticisms. And absolute sovereignty is harmful because they have absolute power, and they could go they could be as a tyrant at any point of time. Then they are anti-democratic because only in single individuals, it's possessing in a hand of one individual itself. So it's highly impossible to be a democratic society. Then difficult to locate sovereignty. This is the main question they came up with. Then state is not supreme in this notion. State is subordinate because he's above the state. with the monistic theory, it could be analyzed that he's above the state. Then Gilchrist says, criticism evoked by Jane Austen's theory may justly be said to have led to the modern theory of sovereignty state. So the critics who have gave their opinions to the monistic theory of sovereignty have in a way led for the sovereignty where it could be used in modern democracy. Okay, so next one is pluralist theory of sovereignty. This is an important one. Then it lays emphasis on legal aspects of sovereignty. Then who gave them? Who gave this one? Okay, then have W. Maitland, Lasky, Phipps, Cole, Barker, Lindsay, and McIver. Then remember them. They are important for the MCQs. Pluralism is a political sociological theory of society, and society consists of various several autonomous but interdependent groups, such as religious organizations, professional associations, occupational bodies. See, society is not just the primitive society without any associations. Even primitive societies with certain associations have came up, established the sovereign authority, right? So the pluralist theory in modern day democracy, they call for like there will be several autonomous institutions, there will be several groups, religious organizations, which would pop up in a democratic system. So the state cannot claim any overriding authority over its associations. So state cannot always impart or pressurize them to be following the rules, right? So these associations are formed especially to fulfill their ideas, to fulfill your liberty. So once state puts restrictions on them, then what is the notion of forming them? So that is what they call for. Then next state is popularly known as pluralism or pluralistic concept of sovereignty and state of affairs in which a multiplicity of groups or institutions is operative within a society. So that is called pluralistic notion of sovereignty. Then principles of pluralism. State is one of the association in the society and it is not the sole repository of the power. It's one of the association. In monoistic theory, it's the only association. Nobody is on a level playing ground with the state. But here, everybody on the level playing ground with the state. Also, state is a one of the association where it can exhibit its sovereign authority. It stands for division of power between state and other associations. Yes, because power is devolved among the other associations that are equal with the state and autonomy for various associations in the society. Developed societies, there are a number of social, political, economic, and cultural associations. So that's why the power is divided among all such associations. State need not have their absolute control over these associations. Then it is very difficult to locate sovereignty in a determinate superior. This is a criticism of monistic theory. Then Lasky, he says it would be lasting benefit to political science if the whole concept of sovereignty is surrendered. So that's not going to happen. He says it would be a lasting benefit to political science if whole concept of sovereignty is surrendered and decentralization of government authority. So it leads to decentralization. How? Because power is devolved among state and other associations, no. So in a way, it led for the decentralization of the power. And state as a leviathan as imagined by the Hobbes. So they say state is a leviathan as an absolute authority. It could control or take over the absolute power. So this association should be better divided. Then expansion of authority of the state undermines the democracy and liberty of the individual. So, and pluralism rejects the concentration of government authority and advocates limited government. So, if the state has exclusive authority over an individual, then it will pressurize the individual to not abide by their freedom of speech or their independent liberties put at risk. But if pluralism is maintained, then the concentration of government authority will be divided and it puts a limit on the government powers and a limited government is established. So that is why they call for pluralistic notion. Then division of power along the lines of functional democracy. Because democracy, various other organizations are also formed. So on that line, it is very much functional. Then pluralists find fault with monistic concept as the command of sovereign. Because sovereign is not source of law and law arises from community's sense of right or justice. So this, if sovereign, once they start to behave or giving this, so being the source of law, then they are at absolute powers to make any powers. But if they are in the hands of community, then sense of justice, sense of idea or liberty could be imparted from the public's notion, and they can understand what they wanted. So then the sovereignty cannot be an absolute and restrict their freedom. Then pluralists do not reject the state altogether. See, this doesn't mean that state's been rejected. State already exists along with other organizations. That doesn't mean that you are cutting down the notion of state, right? So I hope this is a very important line in MCQs in future. Then pluralists accept the state as an important and equally real and natural. So they say state exists, which is real and natural. But along with the state, other associations also exist, and the sovereignty is divided among these equal associations. Then state cannot be treated as an all-comprehensive institutions encompassing all aspects of social life. So state cannot look into the all social life issues or all comprehensive notion, but rather it's divided. So these other institutions also should be given the place. Then Robert Dahl, he analyzed pluralist theory as multiple centers of power, none of which are wholly can be sovereign. So he gives this notion of, in a pluralistic notion, every association of equal status is termed as a center of power, and these cannot be full sovereign. Then degree of differential participation happens because various organizations are involved in it, not just the state. So it leads to a differential participation. Then Dahl sees pluralism as encouraging centers of power on a local rather than on a national scale, which could be argued in terms of community power. Then this pluralism concept just not just be seen on a local, but rather on a national scale you could be seen, because various state authorities, various associations, everybody could be their notion of sovereignty. So this can be argued in a terms of how powerful the community can exercise its sovereign authority. Then criticisms. They deny the state position of permanence in society. It will give a role of coordinating agency. It's not permanent, but it's a coordinating agency. Then state is given power to settle disputes that may arise between individuals, groups, and between groups themselves. Yes, state is given power to settle disputes because as individuals, group of associations on equal level playing state, of course, there would be some contradictions in difference of opinions. So state then have to take the authority and solve the issues. Then absence of sovereign state, the big powerful groups dominate the weak and smaller. So if say state is not sovereign enough, then these associations will show their absolute authority and they might control the weak and the smaller groups and exert their pressure on them. Then theory of doctrine of groups, which leads to anarchy. So these groups in a way will lead to anarchy because state is not the highest authority, but one of the highest authority. So once these associations will come together and um, get the state down of its equal power, then there is no state, then there exists this anarchy only, no? So pluralists do not argue among themselves as regards the nature, functions, place of state in larger society. Then what is the importance? Dangers of all powerful state is cut down because power is divided, but it is also a negative, both positive and negative, depends. They have to keep maintaining the balance. Then need for the dispersal of power and functional decentralization. Then value of pluralism, policy of social and religious diversity. They can help understand them. So this is importance, pluralism, degree of notion. So this is all what we discussed, this concept of sovereignty, monoism and pluralism. Important questions. Important questions is just based on the topic that we are discussing on. So the question could be like, state the types of sovereignty, or Jane Austen's Or example, if Jane Austen notion of sovereignty, definition and meaning, you can write. That's a one question. Then next question, if they ask you about define sovereignty and what are the characteristics of sovereignty, then you have to write meaning, definition, characteristics of sovereignty, and types of sovereignties, monoistic and pluralistic, and just explain the views of monoistic sovereignty, pluralistic sovereignty, and alongside the criticisms and the notions or the theories developed by this pluralist or the monoist. So that is, there happens a lot of questions. So if we consider it as a long, then it's a one question. Then kind of sovereignty or types of sovereignty, titular sovereignty, real sovereignty, then political sovereignty. This is another question. Then de jure sovereignty, de facto sovereignty. Then challenges means criticisms only because pluralist developed. Monistic theory is another question. You have to write Jane Austen's theory if comes new. They'll ask question like Jane Austen's theory or notion of Jane Austen, monistic theory. Then you have to write this whole answer explaining the Jane Austen theory. Then define sovereignty. Then define, then write criticisms. Then write the other away part, the extra part like pluralistic theory of sovereignty also. Yeah, this is pluralistic theory of sovereignty. Then what did we discuss in the previous class? Okay, welfare state, totalitarian state. So there the question would be like define welfare state, one question, or define titular state as one question. Then define monastic, I think monarchical state as one question. So here three questions. Can someone share me what do we call it? Syllabus. Hmm. Yeah, I got it. Then divine right theory, historical theory of state. So divine right theory means there will be a question of explain divine right theory, notion of establishment of state, then historical theory of origin of state, then Marxist, then social contract theory is a very important question. It's a favorite of all paper setters because there they'll be analyzing the students' understanding on Rousseau, Hobbes, and Locke. Then Marxist theories of state is also very important. So I think if it's a short answer, then very great. If it's a long answer, you have to explain Karl Marx view on class antagonisms also. Then state, government, and civil society. They'll ask what is notion of state and write different theories that helped on the evolution of state and what is government, then what is civil society. All these things are like different topics and kinds of states like theocratic, welfare, and totalitarian. Then sovereignty means monoism and pluralism. This is all different. Then individualism, fascism, anarchism, and Marxism. These are ideologies. So ideologies are also so important. If you are writing individualism, then you have to analyze it with the basic criticisms of the fascism also or anarchism or Marxism. So these are all different questions. Then if we go to introduction chapter, meaning, nature, scope of political science, it's a very it's also a very important thing for an examiner. So this is also important. Then evolution of political science. This could be short answer, but there will be a question like define meaning, explain, and nature and evolution of political science. But still, this should be read as a separate topics. Then relationship between political science and other disciplines. This is an important one. This first topic is an important one because that helps you understand how political science has evolved as a discipline and why was Pabad was with it earlier or sociology or the later why did political science has come up as a new discipline. Then traditional approaches, they'll ask differences. Then behavior and post-behavior, modern approach. Mostly the differences would be asked. So you have to draw a table, then right? Behavioralism and post-behavioralism. This is an important. You'll often get confused if you don't have preparation for this behavioralism and post-behavioralism because they are too nearby. Then structural and functional approaches. Yes, systems theory, systems approach, one question. Structural approach, one question. Functional approach, one question. These are important. These three approaches will make and break the political science. Then Marxist approach one, neo-Marxist approach one. These are different. They could also ask the differences between Marxist approach and neo-Marxist approach. So you have to understand both the similarities and dissimilarities between these approaches. Then divine right theory, we have read divine right theory. Then historical theory of origin of state also we have read. These are theories. You have to understand them differently and also would be able to analyze them together. Then social contract theory, important. Marxist theory is different. So these are all different ones. So any other important questions? Any other doubts? Fast. So we have in this unit we have read. Okay, I'll summarize this. Sovereignty, monoism, pluralism. So introduction given, then this is nothing but you have to understand. See, in order to understand the concept of sovereignty, liberty, equality, justice, you have to read the thinkers' theories. Okay, political thinkers' theories. You have to be very perfect with it. The sovereignty also, if you are explaining, if you have read Hobbes, if you have read John Locke or Rousseau perfectly, then you would understand who gave notion for what. Okay. So otherwise, this is all going to go in vain if you don't understand what theory that Hobbes proposed. Is it absolute monarchy or limited, sorry, absolute sovereignty or limited government, etc. Like that. You have to make the differences. So for that also make a table where you write Hobbes, then you write John Locke, and then Rousseau. We have read that in social contract theory. I hopeful that you have attended that class. Then Jean Bodin, then concept of these books are very important because after this you will be writing PG set or some exam for MCQs. This is very important. Then yeah, meaning and definition for any topic is very important. You have to understand like what is an exact meaning and various definitions given by the various political thinkers. Then characteristics of sovereignty, we have read absoluteness, universal, inalienable, permanent, and indivisible, exclusive characteristics. Kinds, titular sovereignty, real sovereignty, uh, legal sovereignty, political sovereignty, de jure, de facto, all these sovereignties. Important questions in PPT. Yeah. I I cannot sit down to type now, but I've explained it now. So challenges to sovereignty. Monoistic theory, it's very important. Who gave this theory? John Austin. I'll explain again. Nothing. The important questions are nothing. Each topic you have to read. So read meaning, nature, scope, then evaluation separately. Then read relationship between political science and other social sciences. Then approaches is very important. What are traditional approaches you should know? What is behavioral approach you should know? Post behavioral approach. Then what is systems approach? Structural functional approach. So these four approaches you have to know must and should. Then Marxist and neo-Marxist also you should know. You should know differently. You should know the differences. You should know the similarities. Then only you will able to understand, analyze the notion of it. Then divine right theory we have read. Historical theory of state origin also you can understand. Then social contract theory, Marxist theory of state, then state definition, government definition, civil society definition, then kinds of state. What are various kinds of state? Theocratic state, welfare state, totalitarian state, with examples. Then only it makes sense. Then sovereignty, monoism, and pluralism. Then ideologies. What is individualism? What is fascism? What is anarchism? And what is Marxism? These are all important, like one, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. So almost around like 30 topics you have to prepare for the SEM exam. So those are only important. Important, read your full booklet so that overall 30 topics you have to understand and prepare accordingly. That's it. Any other? Otherwise, we can end. Any other? Any doubts from the topic? Any doubts from the topics that we have discussed? I hope you all attended all the classes, all the five. Is it five or seven? I think all the five because it has to be six, but all the five. You're all clear with the topics. So is it done? Okay. See you in next class. I think it's for the end. It's the end class for us. So good luck for your end sems. Yeah, it's the class. So yeah, see you all. Good luck.